A trauma is an experience that overwhelms you, that just wipes you out, just makes you have an experience and a reaction of, oh my God, and really makes you collapse, and makes you want to forget, it makes you want to push it away, it makes you want to erase it. It's an experience that makes it's too hard to go back to, don't want to remember it, you don't want to feel it because it's so horrendous. And suddenly seeing your best friend getting killed or something is just like, oh my God, oh my God. It's not just a lousy experience. It's not flunking for an exam or being fired from a job. But it can be as simple as being beaten up by your mom when you're a kid. Even though you're screaming, she keeps going on or he keeps going on. And so for kids, something in the family system can be quite horrendous in terms of being beaten up or being kicked or being molested in a way. For a child, the experience can be quite overwhelming. That for an adult, you could have fought back or you could have done something about it. Basically, just like people who have been traumatized, society at large doesn't really want to think about it, doesn't really want to go there because it's too painful and people feel horrendous and helpless in response to it. So what I've seen in my lifetime, people tend to push things away after a war is over. Civilian populations and politicians once again think, oh, let's go to war. For example, before the invasion of Iraq, I wrote an editorial to the New York Times saying, yes, you can indeed go to war in Iraq, but what will happen is that after people come back, there will be more suicides than there were battle casualties, because we know that from every other previous war, about half of the people who we will send off will become drug addicted or alcoholics, because it happens after every war. Many of them will become unemployable. Their family relationships will oftentimes become extremely difficult and fraught with issues. So we know what will happen, but if you want to forget the reality of what happens after something like this, you can go to war. And so people continuously sort of ignore what happens. We know with how there are about 1 million abused kids in America, and we tend to just think, oh, somehow they'll get over it. Kids are resilient. And no, the kids are not resilient, and we will pay a heavy price for ongoing maltreatment for children. And so basically the history has been always, let's push it under the rug, let's make it disappear, let's not pay attention to it. And then from time to time something happens and something comes up in the culture, like right after a war, people say, oh my God, look what happened. And then before too long, it gets forgotten again. And then you have something like what's happened in the Mexican border right now with the refugees, and everybody goes, oh my God, isn't it terrible that's happening to these kids? But at the same time, we ignore the fact that 2.3 million American children have parents in jail who are living under circumstances not unlike what the refugees do at the Mexican border. Trauma is not a memory about something about the past. The past is over, but the trauma sits inside of you and makes you feel and behave as if it is still going on. So a post-traumatic stress disorder is really not post-traumatic. It is you right now feel like it's happening to you again, over and over again. You keep behaving and reacting as if you're stuck there. And so there is something very fundamental about the brain not knowing that it's over. Even though rationally you know it's over, your system keeps reacting to all kinds of stuff as if it's still happening, because the brain changes. Basically what happens is that the capacity of the brain to process an experience as belonging to the past is interfered with, and so the body automatically, the immune system and the endocrine system and the perceptual systems of the body, of the mind, of the brain continue to react as if they're still in danger. So your body is more likely to develop autoimmune diseases, to react to things in an extreme way, to develop heart disease, to develop a number of illnesses, because the body stays on constant alert for something. And the body doesn't know what it stays on alert for, but it gets stuck in that hyper alertness. The mind gets stuck in a state of, oh my God, I'm going to get hurt. And suddenly people may erupt in a defensive maneuver or become upset. And they know that it's irrational. They know they shouldn't behave like this, but something makes them feel and behave in a particular way. And that's because the perceptual system in the brain is rewired to overreact to current stresses. It is how the perceptual system of the body is organized. So it's brain circuits and body circuits, basically. It's about your whole orientation. It's like learning how to speak a language. Like certainly your body, your mind is organized in a new way. So there are particular areas of the brain where you can say, yeah, you see it over there, you see it over there, you see it in an area called the amygdala, you see it in an area called the periaqueductal gray, you see it in another area called the anterior cingulate, you see it in another area called the parietal temporal junction, you see it in the insula, which is the connection between your brain and your body, how you perceive your body. And so there are many brain areas that are changed by trauma, and the longer it's been going on, the more things changes, and your whole system becomes a system that tries to cope with the continuous reliving over time. And we have a hard time moving on and getting new stuff in. One of the tragic things about being traumatized, it's very hard to learn new experiences, new integrations. Somehow it becomes very hard to take in new experiences. So it becomes hard to learn. That's why it's such a gigantic public health issue, and that's why feeding and taking care of abused and traumatized kids is so important, because if kids get stuck there, it becomes very hard for them to become contributing members of society. That's also true for veterans, of course. So their identity is, I'm a warrior, I get stuck there. They keep having their military decals on their car, and that's the identity. It's hard to move on and say, that's a long time ago. One of the most important findings was our very first study, and very first brain study of traumatized people, where we saw that the trauma is really lodged in the right side of the brain, sort of the back of the right side of the brain, which is the non-rational, reactive part of the brain we refer to as the housekeeping of the body. That's the part of you that takes care of how your body is organized in many ways. So what we discovered is that basically the trauma barely goes into your rational part of the brain, but it really goes into the way you organize your body. And so your body keeps reacting as if you're in danger. And so you have these physiological reactions where you get upset and your heart starts racing, you start secreting stress hormones at inappropriate times. And so you feel out of control. And the people around you think this person is nuts. But it's not only the arousal, which is part of what happens after trauma, it's also the shutting down. When you feel completely helpless, you don't keep fighting. And so trauma is not primarily about a fight-flight response, it's primarily about the shutdown response. So your body starts getting into a defensive mode to try not to feel, try to not experience, try not to overreact. And so one of the most tragic results of trauma is people trying to shut themselves down and not to feel anything at all. And that, of course, makes it very hard to feel alive and to be engaged with your environment. It's fascinating for me how doctors keep looking for psychotropic agents and for drugs to make people feel better. But in fact, our research that shows that drugs don't work very well at all. For example, we did a series of studies, 3 of them actually, where we showed that yoga is more effective than any drug that has been studied. The one drug that's probably helpful to make you not feel anything is opioid drugs. That's maybe part of why there's such a large opioid epidemic. Drugs that doctors prescribe are not particularly helpful most of the time. And so drugs are generally are not the answer. But in our most current research, actually, we're using psychotropic agents. We're using hallucinogens. We're using psilocybin and MDMA, ecstasy, to help people to really reorganize these perceptual problems. But that won't be legal for a number of years. But that's our latest research that we're involved in. So you can actually allow yourself to get the courage to process all the information if you take these hallucinogens, these psilocybin or MDMA, ecstasy, seem to be very helpful to help people to sort of, in a very quiet and self-compassionate way, to say, yes, this is what happened to me. It happened to me a long time ago. It's all felt very painful, but now I'm in a different stage of my life. And so one of the most exciting areas of research right now is the work that I and many of my colleagues are doing in these newer agents. The other thing that we're doing is something called neurofeedback. Now that we know what the circuits are of the brain that get disturbed, we actually are able to harvest people's brainwaves, project them on a computer, and then have people play computer games with their own brainwaves in a way to reorganize their brainwaves. That's actually, for me, an even more exciting prospect. It's not nearly as sexy as the hallucinogens, but it would be a fantastic thing if we could do this for school children who are traumatized, because we could help kids to be alert and attentive and to manage their emotions so they can actually be children. You see, our culture is not a culture that is very much focused on self-regulation, but there's other cultures, like Chinese are very good at, some Indians are very good at it, where you can really learn to control your own physiology. And so there's these age-old Chinese and Indian methods where you can actually learn to, by controlling your breath and controlling your movements, can manage your own physiological arousal. And so the only thing I've studied there is yoga. I've not really studied Tai Chi or Qigong, but I'd be surprised if they wouldn't do the same thing. You can actually learn to manage the housekeeping of your body, which gets so disturbed by trauma, by engaging in a regular yoga practice and really learning how to move and to breathe in a way that makes you feel calm and safe. I call this sort of our post-alcoholic culture. And so the mainstream culture, the Western culture, is very much, if you feel bad, take a drug. And so we give these very contradictory messages to our kids. We say to our kids, don't take drugs, but take this drug for your ADHD or take this drug for your bipolar illness. And what we don't really teach kids or adults in our culture is you can actually regulate your own physiology. And one of the things that I'm really pushing with whoever I can talk to is that every school should learn the 4 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and self-regulation, and that every school actually should teach kids how to regulate their own physiology. It should be a basic skill that all of us as humans should learn. Start every day with doing yoga or qigong. You start by sitting still, focusing on your body, activating the interoceptive part of your brain, the midline cortical structure of your brain, which has to do with self-regulation. You pay attention to your internal world. You pay attention to the way you move. You pay attention to the way you breathe. You notice how your breathing patterns change your thinking and your mood patterns, and you really become familiar with your own internal world. So basically what I advocate is that everybody, but particularly traumatized people, really have a practice in which every day they practice being still and working with their bodies to regulate their physiology. chanting is also very good for people. Chanting changes your heart rate variability, changes the way that your brainstem, the core of your brain, has to do with regulating your body, works. Every religion involves chanting, basically. It's very sad that people don't chant so much in our culture anymore. Our grandparents all chanted and sang, but we don't do it very much anymore. And we should go back to actually singing in unison with other people, as people have always done in every religion, because it helps people to feel calm and safe. The military also does it. They do the cadences. And so moving and singing together is very good for people's physiology. You probably can do it by yourself, but traditionally, since time immemorial, people have worked on making themselves feel calm and a member of a community by singing together. And making music together is a communal enterprise. And one of the big things with trauma is that you feel isolated, lonely, and bereft and separated from anybody else. Learning how to get in tune with other people, being in sync with other people, is undoubtedly a very good thing when you're traumatized. I think the whole notion of exposure treatment is really a misunderstanding about what traumatic stress does, because it's not the memory that really is the primary issue, but it's the fact that your brain has changed in response to the old thing. You need to help your brain to feel safe in the present. It's indeed helpful to be able to relive the memory from a very safe point of view, but the most important thing is that the mind and the brain needs to be very calm as you revisit the horror of the past. And so making people feel horrified as they relive the past is very, very bad for them and would be anti-therapeutic. And the reason why we do things like psychedelics and MDMA when we give people, treat people for PTSD, is because these drugs help people feel very safe and very calm, so that the mind and the brain is capable of actually going back there and saying, yes, this happened to me, but this happened to me a long time ago. So just blasting people with their past is very bad for them. The operative word here is feeling safe, calm, and in control over your own physiology. So you don't want to do anything that just blasts people with things that make them feel out of control again. And so the whole teaching issue is, how can I help you to feel safe inside and to have the courage to face very, very difficult things while you feel safe and you feel like no harm can occur to you. So the most important thing is to create an environment of safety and physiological calm in which healing can occur. So it starts off as feeling safe in your body. And that means that you need to actually do something that allows you to feel your sensations without being freaked out by them. And so the experience of trauma is relived in the form of heartache and gut-wrenching physical sensations. It's a bodily experience of, oh my God, I'm in danger and this is intolerable. And so the reason why people take drugs is because they have intolerable physical sensations. They cannot stand the way their body feels. And so the core issue is we need to help people to feel safe in their bodies. And so breathing, moving, chanting, yoga, qigong, maybe dancing, massages, maybe one. People have to discover first, how can I make my body feel safe? And once your body feels safe, you can allow yourself to slowly go to experiences from the past that are too horrifying to meet and to encounter again. So once you feel really safe, you can bite off little pieces of what happened back then and say, yes, that was horrible. When I was 3 years old and when I was 18-year-old, seeing that person being blown up or being threatened or being raped was horrendous. But because I feel safe right now, I can really deeply appreciate that what happened back then is something that belongs to my past and not to my present. But you can only do that once your body feels safe and feels deeply rooted in the time that you live in, 2018 in our case. You see, mindfulness is difficult for most traumatized people because becoming still means that you empty out your mind, and then the demons from the past tend to come up. So just sitting still in meditation is for most traumatized people a big challenge. So doing something like yoga tai chi might help your mind to focus and your body to focus, and generally is more safe for people than just sitting in meditation. But I have nothing but great respect for people who have the capacity to sit in silence for 10 days and allow the demons to come out and to wrestle with them and to lay them to rest. And the other thing that's important to say is that none of this has to do with understanding. Has nothing. So explaining why you're messed up helps people to understand. Oh, now I know why I'm messed up. But understanding why you're messed up does not stop you from being messed up. So explaining to people, oh, you shouldn't feel that way because this happened a long time ago, and today is December 2018. How can you be so stupid to continue to feel like that? Is not really a good treatment. And you should not pay for treatments like that. The rational brain has nothing to do with this. This has to do with your animal brain, has to do with the housekeeping of your body and your core entity of yourself that feels in danger, even though you know that you're not in danger. You know that rationally this person is not going to hurt you, but your body feels like this person is about to rape you again. So it comes from a different part of your brain that comes from that right deep survival part of your brain, and you need to go into your survival brain. Sitting on your butt and talking about it is not going to solve the issue. You know, if you go to the American Psychological Association website, and there are some people who advertise themselves as being trauma savvy. They may or may not be. Indeed, anybody who can work with bodily states would be very helpful. I think EMDR, eye movement desensitization and processing, is a very nice technique to help lay relatively uncomplicated trauma to rest. Important thing too. So there's a lot of EMDR trainers. People who have been trained in somatic experiencing or sensory motor psychotherapy tend to be people who basically know the principles of this. Going to trauma-sensitive yoga is helpful. Going to certain healing centers like Palo, a yoga center here in Massachusetts, is helpful. There's the Sidran Foundation. It's a foundation that has good resources. The Trauma Center, the Trauma Research Foundation, we have resources on our website. Also, what Experiencing does. The Center for Self-Leadership has very good resources. Actually, my book has a whole bunch of resources in the back of it of people who do various things that help. What's important here is that, we have this rush towards evidence-based treatments, but it's important to remember this work is 30 years old. People had just been gradually discovering all kinds of new things. For example, 10 years ago, I knew nothing about neurofeedback. Most people I know still don't know anything about neurofeedback. But now a number of people are good with neurofeedback. 2 years ago, we started to do MDMA therapy, and that's very promising. So all of this is a work in progress. And so this is not like, oh, we have discovered it, we know what the truth is, and this is what the evidence is. No, people are continuously learning, finding new treatments. So it's important to know that this is an evolving field. Somatic experiencing is one particular trauma treatment that very much focuses on the body getting stuck in trauma and helping to release and feel safe in your body. It's similar to another sister method called somatic experiencing, sensory motor psychotherapy, two methods developed by two different friends of mine. So EMDR is a very strange technique that invented by Francine Shapiro about 25 years ago, who discovered that if you call up a memory and you move your eyes from side to side, that oftentimes lead to that memory losing some of its power. And it's something that I did research on, funded by the National Institute of Health, and we found that indeed it's very helpful in many, many cases. And we recently finished a study in a brain scanner seeing what it does, and that actually we were able to show that moving your eyes from side to side indeed does activate some brain circuits. It has to do with self-perception and being able to put things in the proper time sequence. I think the first action item actually is two. One is to take care of your body and to really begin to develop a loving relationship to taking care of your body. And I think yoga, qigong, maybe tango dancing, maybe martial arts, a way in which you really get in touch with your bodily sensations and learn how to manage your bodily sensations would be the foundation as far as I'm concerned. Being able to tell somebody what has happened to you and what you're so terrified of is also very helpful. Being able to get things off your chest, being able to say to somebody, I was raped, I was molested. To really tell the truth is also very important. It doesn't make it go away, but being able to put it out there and say, this is what I'm struggling with, is a very important issue also. Being met by somebody who really takes you very seriously and doesn't try to fix you, but tries to help you to find ways in which you can feel better about yourself is very important. But cardio workouts can also be great ways of actually separating from your body. Being like a mouse on a treadmill, it doesn't really make your mind feel more connected with your body. People can use marathon running and these very hard exercises as ways of not feeling themselves. So it's really the mindful body techniques that are helpful. But if you go to a gym and you go on a treadmill, you watch Fox News, I would not call that good trauma treatment.